Welcome to the Gold Creek Extended Cut podcast, where we dive a little bit deeper into the weekend message. My name is Nick. I'm one of the pastors at Gold Creek. I'm joined today by a very special guest.
Special in what way?
Special
Yeah.
from Idaho.
Yeah, that is true.
All right. We'll get back to that later. This is Eric Wade. Eric is our newest staff pastor.
Absolutely.
I think, is that still true?
I think technically somebody beats me for newest, but they were a longtime attendee of the church, and
Okay.
newest to the whole.
The newest new guy.
The newest, yeah.
But we do go back. We went to college together. Weren't close friends.
No, I think you were. We'll just say a higher social class, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
It was hard to get time with somebody like Nick.
I didn't want to say it. Actually, Eric was the student body president. So
I didn't want to say that. So
it's good to have the president here, not the one that rhymes with crump. No, I'm just kidding. That's and yeah, man. So glad that you were actually better friends with my wife, who was not my wife at the time.
Yeah. We were in student government together, so knew Chris pretty well. I remember when you two started dating. I knew enough about you to know
Here we go.
He seems way too chill for Chris. So, and you guys, I think maybe just balance each other out well. That's probably how it goes.
You would think that's how that would have played out, and Eric's married.
Yeah, we married almost 18 years.
What?
3 boys,
Rated
10
R.
eggs,
Your marriage is now rated R.
Yeah, it's a full into adulthood now.
There we go. There you go. It could get drafted.
Yeah.
It could vote. Buy cigarettes. Anyway.
All
And you have kids.
Yeah, 3 boys. So it's a very testosterone-packed kind of household, which works for us.
I love it, man. Eric's been a great addition to our pastoral team. His first time preaching here, did a great message. What was that like? It was on May the 4th. I remember that.
It was on May the 4th. It was about conflict, like resolving conflict in relationships.
Dude.
And
you found out you were officially preaching.
Officially, I woke up to a text at 5:30 a.m. on Sunday. But I was given heads up at 5:30 p.m. the night before, like, you might be preaching. I'm feeling kind of yucky, and you might be preaching. And so I just imagined I was definitely preaching and planned that way.
Smart. So. That was the first time that's ever happened. Has that ever happened to you? You couldn't go?
It's happened one time. I remember getting sick, so sick I could not do youth group that night when I was a youth pastor, and my wife took my notes and figured it out and preached for me.
Man,
God
what
bless
a G.
Rayanne, my wife.
The little bit more backstory on that was like, my family had been dropping like flies I saw him going down with the stomach thing. I don't know how you are. Your wife's a nurse, so you're probably better about, like, for me, when my family gets sick, I avoid them. I'm like, you stay away from me. My son's like, can I have crackers? Like, no, go away.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
I go into that mode. So I was like, I'm going to be fine. But then I started to feel a little weird. I think I texted you. I don't remember exactly, but I thought I texted you like, hey, I'm a little queasy, but like, let's call it 20%.
Yeah, I remember the percentage take.
Okay.
But I think then you followed up with that later with like an increased percentage, and that's when I was like, oh, he's going down.
Around 9:29, I was getting ready for bed, I remember, and I'm like, let's call it 40.
Yeah.
And then I didn't text you because I figured you were sleeping, but at 2-something a.m., I texted a couple other people on our team. All it said was, "It's Eric, see you online." That was all I could fire off.
Yeah.
So
that's...
yeah.
That was, that was a trial by fire. It was good. I kind of still think it was planned. Like, I think you just took the Sunday off and this was like a planned experience to test me, but hey, it's great.
I wish I was that guy. I'm going to write that. Hang on. Jot that down. That's what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about the first 2 weeks in our new summer message series, which is called
Pack the Essentials.
PTE.
That's right.
Pack the Essentials. So little bit of in the kitchen here. My favorite show right now, by the way, I don't know if I should admit this on this podcast, but on the record, my favorite show right now, The Bear.
Has he said that on every podcast? I believe.
I've been evangelizing
he
it.
Has.
Okay. Also, because you and I both have been around church for a little while.
Yeah.
There's another show right now on HBO called Righteous Gemstones. Have you heard of that one?
I haven't seen either of these.
Man,
I need
you're
to watch
you're a
them.
good. You're like you have a pure heart though. Like God's working on mine.
Well, my wife convicts me.
That's
And
good.
then there's that too.
So Righteous Gemstones, it's like John Goodman. It's like a parody of like televangelists.
Oh,
And it
okay.
is funny, but it's like, okay, cringy. So, and the bear is like just super intense kitchens, high production, high excellence. And it's interesting because after being in church world for like most of my career, in and out of it or adjacent to it, I actually feel like most church world is less like Righteous Gemstones and more like the bear.
The
Like-
intensity,
Yeah, it's not really a parody. It's like we're going to do this really well because our mission's so important.
Yeah.
But like sometimes somebody gets a finger sliced,
yeah.
you know,
That's a good
literally
analogy.
or emotionally.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've always felt like working in the church world is intense. There's never enough time. You're like kind of constantly scrambling, and there's occasionally
somebody says
some
something
injuries.
out. Everybody says chef. You know, it's,
Yeah,
it's the best.
Everyone needs your attention all at the same time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We digress, but I was saying like to see into our kitchen at Gold Creek, you know, we're trying our best. We're trying something new. Are we? You're new, but
Yeah.
we're trying to compile our message series a little bit more collaboratively and also a little bit more like in a focused way. So actually for this series, you wrote the outline for the whole thing.
That is true. Yeah. I took what you guys had started and
Okay.
just kind of crossed the finish line with it, I think.
Okay, so this will cover weeks 1 and 2. Where are we going with the whole series?
Yeah, so the whole series is around the idea that faith itself is this journey that we are on, right? We're at whatever starting point your faith journey began. Maybe you grew up in church, maybe you are new to faith, you're exploring it. You had a starting point, but all of us have a destination that we're going to get to.
Okay.
Eventually, that would be, you know, when we fully experience life with Jesus in the second coming, whatever you want to call
Ooh,
it.
yeah.
This isn't
Ooh.
an
The already
eschatology.
and the not
yeah,
yet.
Yeah, something like
Oh.
that. So, but in between there is what do we need to make it on that journey from where I am now to fully, you know, to full paradise with Jesus. And there are some common things that we pulled out. And then really what came out of that was the Exodus journey of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt into the promised land became just such a clear parallel to the experience that we walk out today of a journey of faith.
Going through the desert.
Yeah, so they're leaving slavery, they're leaving their place, they're walking through the desert, they need provision, they are protected from their enemies. I mean, so guided through by, you know, so many things, and we see those things play out obviously very differently today. I have not seen a pillar of fire. I don't know about yourself. Been guided by that yet. That would be really cool. But it's different for us today. But again, there are those parallels.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love that idea. I think it's interesting because, you know, when we think about slavery, loaded topic, we're not getting into, could never understand all of the, you know, both like our nation's relationship with slavery, super sad, complicated issue. I'm not touching that today. And even like the dynamics of slavery around the world. But nonetheless, like the Israelites are in captivity. We know that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. This is just a side we touch, you know, like there's so much about the pyramids today.
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue around those.
A lot of intrigue.
Yeah.
Ranging from like, these are mostly UFOs. Like that's mostly what I hear.
Yeah. Like we could not possibly have built these as human beings. There's got to be some other external help.
But isn't the theory then though that the Israelites would have like made though? I don't know enough.
I don't know enough either.
Okay.
We should study that.
There's a fun
Another
piece of
sermon series is going to
speculation.
come, which is how the Israelites built.
Because like that, if it's like, no, it was the Israelites the whole time, then it was like, dude, God just crossed over again.
That's a great theory.
Okay. But we talked about this idea, they're in slavery, they're in captivity, and then they're getting brought. But then I thought, hey, most of us probably don't like relate to what slavery feels like.
Yeah.
But then in one week of the message series, we were talking about this idea of like, how kind of like our modern life cycle like traps us.
Oh yeah. I think it's a very common experience to feel trapped, like at some point, or to feel stuck at some point. You know,
interesting.
midlife crisis, or you might call it, but I think there are so many other examples where you're like, I'm not sure what to do. I don't know how to get out of this. It could either be like self-imposed, like I screwed up, I'm stuck in this habit, I don't know what to do about that.
That's good. I didn't think
Or
about that.
it's externally imposed, like I'm in this situation because of a diagnosis, because of something somebody else did.
Yeah.
It's not exactly slavery, but it is something that we can't necessarily get out of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah. So in other words, like we can get trapped in things, and then we react to them to try to start something new or do something like that.
Yeah. Or just to deal with the fact that this is our life, to just medicate or escapism or whatever with no hope that it's ever going to change.
Medicate. That's an interesting word. Have you like flirted with a midlife crisis ever? Like if you
Not
were
to my knowledge.
flirted was a wrong word.
Maybe soon we'll see.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, part of my journey has
Yeah.
been probably the last couple years before Gold Creek was this interesting journey where, I mean, in some ways was this midlife, not a crisis, but I had to rework through like, what is my calling? What is my identity? Who am I supposed to be? All those kinds of things, because I went from leading a church to full-time at home with my kids and my wife working, and there's a whole other story there. But so I had to reconcile with like, well, who am I and what did God actually call me to? And am I called to ministry or not? Could I be happy just working in the marketplace and just showing up and being a volunteer at church? And had to work through all of those things. So it was definitely something that I felt stuck in. Like, I'm not sure what to do. I'm reconciling through all these things. There was, probably, full disclosure, not medication in a substance kind of a way, but I'm like not happy. I'm not enjoying the season of life. So I've got to find outlets to just make it work. Yeah. So again, that'd be part of my story, my experience, maybe hopefully not full. If that's my whole midlife crisis, that would be phenomenal, because I don't feel like it was that bad. So let's just say that was it. And I'm not going to do another one.
My midlife crisis was hanging with my kids, serving at a church and working.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. So, but again, there was just this sense that I was not where I should be. I think that was the deeper sense of like, this is not how my wife or myself envisioned our lives functioning or working. And I had to just obviously deal with the fallout of a hope and a future that I wished I had experienced at this church, leading this church, that I no longer was able to, there's the loss of that I've got to reconcile. So much more of an emotional crisis than like the physical.
Dude, but I feel like every crisis starts emotionally.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people who feel stuck, even as we're preaching through the series, it's like, hey, how do you make Exodus relevant? You don't have to make the Bible relevant, but just like, what can people grab onto in the Exodus account? And that's where I'm like, I feel like people do feel stuck, or they feel like, you really want God to speak to you, right? You really are like, God, just like, tell me what job I'm supposed to have. Or tell me what who I'm supposed to marry, or tell me where I'm supposed to live. Yeah. It's like in the Exodus account, they don't really get like these specific instructions.
Right.
It's just
pretty vague, and God takes them on a pretty circuitous, is that a word? Route. Like they go all over the place.
Circumfracus.
Yeah. I just made up a word. I do that sometimes.
Okay. So what was that, as much as you want to bring us in, what was that journey for you?
Yeah. Well, I found that when God is guiding, and specifically in this last season, I feel like it's the best analogy I could use is like a funnel. Like it goes from vague to much more specific. For us, it was the question that I was wrestling with, which was, is ministry who I'm supposed to be? Is that supposed to be my vocation anymore or not? And I had to reconcile. I feel like I had to solve that question first, came to the conclusion, this is it. This is what you're called to do. Still, that's it. And then I had to go, where is that going to be? And then my wife and I kicked around, like, we could move, we could stay here, like where, so that kind of closed the funnel a little bit more. And then it was kind of like it just got more and more narrow into what, like, okay, so we're supposed to do ministry. I guess we felt like, okay, we're supposed to stay in Seattle. That was the next question that was answered. The Seattle area is where we're supposed to be. And then it was, like, where specifically? Yeah. And, we're so happy and feel so clearly that it's Gold Creek, so it was this funnel for us of very broad to much more specific.
And then for you personally, what was that like in terms of God showing up in the journey?
Yeah. There was so much that he would just provide, right? Like there's so much provision that we experienced on that journey. There was a lot of the guidance and the encouragement of friends, of church community during that during that time. And then just, again, it's just amazing ways God proving that he was still with us. Again, if that was like, hey, we're looking at next month's budget and it's looking like it's going to be in the red. And then somehow God provided extra income, extra opportunity. And, he provided. So he's showing up in those sense. There were opportunities to continue to lead in various capacities in ministry, to keep that flame sort of alive, helping with young adults and worship and just whatever I could do, And so again, and there was just that encouragement from others going like, hey man, you're still in this, like we still see you in this. And so it was the people, it was circumstantial experiences. It was a bunch of different ways.
Dude, probably like the Israelites.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this later in the series, but, the way that God, sometimes it was bread that rained from heaven. Sometimes it was water from unlikely places. Sometimes it was birds to the point of, ad nauseum.
Literally,
Right, so, that's interesting how God brings that into the journey for sure, man. So week 1, we're talking about destination, this idea of like, where are you going, right?
Yeah, where you're going is going to define the whole journey, right? When I'm punching it into my Maps app, the destination is what defines everything else.
100%. And it's interesting. I mean, one of the things we sort of got into in the message yesterday is the idea that, God sort of like digs in at different levels. So like first we get like new information, like we get a new identity. And then but then that identity comes from who God is. And then that identity results in purpose or day in, day out. And then from that purpose, it's like, no, I actually have, we talked about the idea of 4 H's. We did a good,
heart,
good
pastors,
head, hand, heritage, and how God, sort of hits all of those in our lives. So we'll come back to that in a second. Next week, we're talking about
how God guides us.
How God guides us, and God bringing this guidance into our lives. So stay tuned for
it's gonna be a good
that.
One. Absolutely.
When it comes to destination, what do you think? Do you think people have like a specific spiritual destination in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope, again, as a pastor, my hope would be that Christians are clearly aiming for eternity, right? Like there's this clear, like I'm living my day in, my day out because I want to hear, like for me, I've said this to many people, I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant from Jesus at the end of it. That's why I do everything I do every single day. So that affects like all the things you talked about, what I think about, how I think about myself, what I do every day, how I raise my kids. My hope is that every Christian at least is in that space. If you're not in that space, then I mean, what are you living for? You've got to kind of redefine that for yourself. Like the destination is, I want to leave famous, or I want to have the most stuff, or I want to have some kind of other self-defined category. Spiritually, obviously I'm not an expert in all the other religions, but there's these other ideas out there. I'm going to reach nirvana, or I'm going to reach a state in which I need simply nothing anymore. I'm going to reincarnate into the absolute best. Like I'm going to keep progressing up and up and up.
Steps.
Or, I'm just going to impress God enough that like he deems me worthy to have some kind of good experience, or there's nothing. And so we just do whatever we can on the earth. There is no destination is kind of the atheistic viewpoint.
A
difficult one to swallow. Like, what am I doing here then? What's the point?
If you're an atheist, if you're watching and you're an atheist, I mean, that's kudos. I feel like that takes a lot of I mean, what do you like, okay, so if we say this destination is this idea of leaving a spiritual heritage, hearing the well done. If you're an atheist, like what is your moral guide?
I mean, from those atheists that I've listened to and had conversations with, it tends to be, the moral guide tends to be, they'll say like defined by society, right? Society, it's humanistic. How do I make society better? Since this is the only world that we get and there is no afterlife, there will never be justice worked in the next life. There will never be redemption in the next life. The only place we can do it is here. So they actually do seem to be deeply interested in doing good now, because it's the only good that will ever be experienced. experienced in their mindset, right?
Yeah.
For the Christian, it's a very different. We do good now because we see that there's an even better day coming, and we're agents of God here on this earth to do good. So again, not putting words in an atheist's mouth, you're going to have a very different perspective to
No, that's interesting though.
But yeah, that humanistic, how do I make the world better now during this small window that I have the chance to, which is a noble, like, let's call it, it's a noble mindset.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's just missing again, at the end of the day, I'd say we're still missing the reason for that noble mindset. The reason being that, like, well, God created, that's why we're good to one another. And God has an ultimate victory and purpose and plan for all this, that it does end well. And so,
that's even interesting, right? Like if we take the Exodus account and we say like, okay, God has this destination in mind, but what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to get the people unstuck. I think about that. I don't spend a lot of time like thinking about that in my own life. Like thinking about, okay, is God in a cycle right now of getting me unstuck, or is he kind of presenting the end, or what does this look like? But I think as we talk through like studying for this series or jumping into it, you're like, oh no, God does have like a plan and a purpose, and he's got stuff down the road in the future kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What do we end on? We ended on this verse, right? That's like, John 14, 1-4. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, what I've told you, I'm going there to prepare a place for you. You think a lot of Christians still struggle with like this idea of that's my destination?
Yeah. Again, well, I'd say I hope that everyone thinks that way. I would say behaviorally, it seems to me in my pastoral experience that most people do not like act day to day as if that's true.
Yeah.
There is much more of I think a rise and grind and live for today and try to, just
make today matter.
In some self-defined kind of a metric. So I don't know that everybody thinks about that or wakes up every day thinking about Jesus going to prepare a place for them and their life, eternity and what they're going to do. I heard one of my pastors used to say, not what's your 10-year plan, but what's your 10,000-year plan.
Dang.
And most people, I think, are only thinking about their 10-year plan.
Totally.
Even Christians.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, even in church, like we think about, like, all right, in the next 10 years, but it's like, well, no, we're trying to impact 10 bajillion year or whatever it is, right? Like the investment people make is.
And I don't know if it's just so hard for us to wrap our minds around something that lasts forever, right? Like to go like,
so scary.
So how am I supposed to live for that? I'm not sure, right? And I mean, there's a whole other context on like how boring heaven sounds when some people describe it. If there's no problems to solve and there's nothing for me to do and I just have to like sing the whole time, I'm probably not going to enjoy it, right? Like it's going to, at least from what I understand now. So it's so much easier for me to focus on what I have to do today, what I have to do in the next few years, how I'm raising my kids, how can I, provide the best possible life and do good here on this earth. It's way easier to think about that.
Dude, totally. Yeah. Well, what else do you want to talk about?
That's good. Yeah, I guess my hope is that as people listen to this, we do think about that more often, right? We do think about the destination. We think about how God guides us to that destination. It becomes a much more clear part of the reason why we do everything. And maybe that's just the takeaway, is just to think through like, hey, why is it that I do the stuff I do every day? Why is it that I do the stuff I do every week? And does it have is it getting me closer to that actual destination?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think about that idea, right? Like of just waking up and not living for what's in front of you today. And I mean, we both have little kids. I think it's like, I'll just snapshot it into parenting, at least in this season. It's so easy to be like, dude, when is the vacation?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right. Like when are we getting away? When are we getting a break? But then you go on vacation, and when you have little children, it's just like, you just take your life here where you have a lot more controlled variables and dump them into a uncontrolled environment.
Yeah. And fun. Not relaxing though. That'd be my takeaway. It's fun. We have fun.
Super fun.
But I'm like, man, I'm tired because I had to keep the toddler out of a fire, or I had to.
100%. Right. And so you just like miss the again, if I extrapolate that out over over a lifetime or multiple generations. You're like, dude, I hope it's not just like, hey, did I wake up and grind it out and make enough choices? And do I have the 401k and the 529 plans? Like, yeah, do all that stuff. But like, I think what this idea of destination is like, no, what God has for us is like this eternal heritage kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's just hard to keep
And
it out
just
in
to
front.
know that it's good. Like, it's really good. His destination for us is so good. And his guidance along the way is going to be so good. And it's going to be even better than working my tail off for 60 years and then taking a 40-year vacation or 20-year vacation, you know? There's so much more that we get to live for. It's so good. And it's worth it.
Amen. Amen. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Eric.
So, yeah, good to be here.
Next couple weeks, I think we'll have a couple of different guests on that are preaching for us. So stay tuned. Thanks for checking out Gold Creek Extended Cut.